Good evening. Today we're going to be learning Maseches, Bava Basra, Daf Kufnan Dalad. It's a long, complicated blot, and we're going to be stopping close to the bottom of Kufnan Dalad and Beis, 5 lines from the bottom, 4 lines from the bottom. And for Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Shabbos, Rabbi Reuven Handler has been hired for the same rate of pay that I am paid, and he will happily sub, which is really nice of him.
Price of admission?
Same price of admission. This is a fiscally sound shiur. The fiduciary responsibilities are in check, you know. What?
Everybody's on fire time.
I know, seriously. Well, I'm leaving, so I'm just excited. I'm packing out of here. What storm? In New York? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I'm glad. So we're starting at the bottom of Kufnan Gimel Amud Beis, and we're picking up with the Baal Plugta, the Chachamim. The Chachamim Omer Mamosi Mechaver Olav Araya. If you flip back to the Mishnah on the bottom of Kufnan Gimel Amud Aleph, which we learned yesterday, if you flip back to Kufnan Gimel Amud Aleph, you'll see that the Mishnah at the bottom is where we're sourcing this piece of Gemara from. There we had said that if a person gave over a matna shchiv meira in a letter, but he didn't write it down, and then he got better. So then, of course, Ahmad, he wants to get his money back. He only gave away the money, and this is our general assumption of a matna shchiv meira, is that if there's a matna shchiv meira and he gets better, he gets his money back because the pretense of his giving it was that he thought he was going to die. So now that Baruch Hashem, a miracle happened, medicine, whatever the case, maybe he's alive and well. He wants his money back. But it didn't say shchiv meira in the letter. So does the absence of shchiv meira in the letter indicate something a little shtickle different? This is machlokas tanoim. So according to Rav Meir, the shchiv meira has the burden of proof to say, I was a shchiv meira during that time, and therefore it's chozer to me. Or if he can't prove it, then he remains a bari, but he's got to bring a raya. And the Chachamim say not that way. The Chachamim say amosi mechavero olav araya, that really the burden is on the mekabel. It's on the recipient, that if they want to receive the money, then they need to then prove that he was a bari. I don't know how they prove that, but that's what they need to prove. So that's where we're starting from on the bottom of Kufnan Gimel Amud Beis with Shitas Chachamim. That in regards to a case where the recipient Matana, one who has to prove,
Want to see Phil?
as the Gemara, hold on 1 second. Raya b'maya. What kind of raya? What raya are we bringing? So there's a bunch of answers to this. Raya b'maya, kufnan dalad amud aleph, says the Gemara, raya b'edim. You have to bring edim. So that means edim will say he was never sick. We were with him every day of the week. He was never hospitalized. That's what the edim would say. Rav Chizda v'Rabba bar Rav Huna Amre, they hold raya b'kiyum ashtar. The way you make a raya is you verify the star. The star that he wrote, you verify it. If they verify the star that this is accurate, it doesn't say shchiv meira, so then shalom Yisrael, then he was a bari, and that means that they get to keep it. Let's analyze these two shitas about what a raya is. 3 lines down on Kufnan Dalad Amud Aleph. Rav Huna Amar raya be'edim kamiflagei. Yes, correct. Rav Huna Amar raya be'edim, according to him, who says that the raya we're looking for is edim, is kamiflagei be'plugta de Rab Yaakov Rab Nasan. He is actually similar to the discussion that we saw yesterday between Rav Yaakov and Rav Nasan. Rav Meir in our Mishnah is Kirev Nasan over there, which is Basar Hashta. We look at the scenario right now. Namely, if he's a bari, then he has to bring a raya that he's a shchivera, because right now he's healthy. The Rabbanon, Kirev Yaakov, the Rabbanon of our Mishnah, who said that the burden is on the Mikabel to prove that the shchivera was taka a bari. So that's similar to Rabbi Yaakov, which is Basar Chazaka is lean on, that we have to follow whatever the previous standing Chazaka is. And then Rav Chizda Rabbi Bar Huna Amre Raya B'Kiyum Ashtar. How do we understand that shita? Oh, I miscoded this. How then do we understand this shita of Kiyum Ashtar? That's the raya that needs to be brought. So says the Gemara. Kamiflage, really, the Rav Meir and the Chachamim argue a little differently. Miflage, what they're arguing about is Moda Bishtar Shekasvo Tzarech L'Kaimo. That if the person admitted that he wrote this document, let's apply that to our case. The Mishnah on the bottom of Kufnan Gimel Amud Aleph says that the man, the Shchiv Meira, gave a man the Shchiv Meira when he was sick in the form of a star, but he never ended up dying. So, but he admitted to writing the star. Reb Meir savar mod b'shtar shekasvo eno tzarich l'kaimo. He says you don't have to be mekayim the star. Rabbanan savre mod b'shtar shekasvo tzarich l'kaimo. So that's where the shita of Rav Chiza v'Rabba bar Huna, that's where they were talking about the raya being from a kiyum hashtar. Says the Gemara, but wait 1 second. This machlokes of mod b'shtar shekasvo tzarich l'kaimo or not, we already learned this idea. And really, this whole machlokes is rooted in the principle of pesha asar, pesha hiter. We're not going to go into the Rishonim, but this is a great sugya in that regard. Is that if he's the one to say that I wrote the star, so that's pesha asar, can he also be the pesha hiter? That's the machlokes over here. But we already learned this to Tanya. We have a brisa. This brisa we've seen before. That if we have a case of... if we have a case where they were moded that they wrote the star, so after they wrote the star, ein ne'eman, not ne'eman on the poslo, you're not believed, that's pesha asar, you're not allowed to be mater, right? Well, it's actually not correct. Is that you said you wrote it, so ein ne'eman on the poslo, you can't ruin it. So we see the same exact machlokas twice. So how then do we understand the duplicative nature of our Gemara? That we have our case at the top of the case in our Mishnah, and we also have over here the brisa that's quoted from Maseches Ksubis. Says the Gemara Tzricha, the two cases are very different, in fact, from a very fundamental perspective. Diet marhahi, if we only had one case, when you're dealing with Edim, Edim are very strong, and Edim can uproot a star. However, in our Mishnah, we weren't talking about Edim. In our Mishnah, what we were talking about was one individual. He's one person. He's not as strong as Edim. So when you say that we're talking about Edim, okay, say there, I could understand. But perhaps it would not be the case, Amalo, it might not have been the same had we been talking about an individual. But and the reverse is also true. If you would have said that it's true by an individual, so then maybe everyone would agree by Edim. So we don't know where the machlokas takes place. That's why we had to say both machlokos. Otherwise, we would have had a lack of clarity. We needed it to be the case that one of them was in a case of Edim, because Edim have the power to be mar shtar, to ruin a star. And we also needed it to be in regards to a case of an individual, because we couldn't learn those two cases from one another. And halfway down says the Gemara, V'chein Amar Rabba Rai Be'edim. Rabba chimes in, and he agrees with the Shita of Rav Huna on the third line of the page. Rav Huna had said Rai Be'edim, that the Rai of our Mishnah was talking about with witnesses. V'chein Amar Rabba Rai Be'edim. Amar Le Abaye. Abaye says to Rabba, my taima, what is the reason why you say that it's Rai Be'edim? This is very technical. Follow along. Inema, if you want to say the kul huksiv, that in general in shtaros it's written behu kad hava mahalach al ragloi b'shoka. This guy's walking on his own 2 feet, namely that he's a bari. And uvahalo kasib be, that regular line that says he's healthy was missing. Shmamina, that he's not healthy, and therefore shchiv meirave. And therefore we need edim to say that he is or isn't a shchiv meirah. We need to know that he's healthy or not. Adarabba, I could have argued exactly the opposite direction because of something else that might be missing from this document. Had it been that we were talking about a shtar that was written by a shchiv meirah, it would have said, I'm lying on my deathbed. But it doesn't say that. So because we've omitted the line that's typically said by a shchiv meirah, so therefore Shema Mina Bari Hav, it must be that he's a Bari. As Ella, the Gemara says you're right. You're 100% right. And Uki Mamona B'Chez Kasmare, the reason why the Chachamim say over here why they have to bring a raya, why the Makabel has to bring a raya, is because the money is still in the possession of the shchiv meirah, or the non-shchiv meirah, of the person who was a shchiv meirah. So that's what the Gemara says. And just like we saw at the very top of this page when we started today, at the top of the page we saw in Kufnan Dal right at the top, we said Raya B'mai, we saw Machlokes Rav Huna and Rav Chizda. Look at this, same exact thing. Plukta de Rav Yochanan, Amar Raya Be'edim, he says Edim. Whose shita is that? That's the shita of Rav Huna. Rav Shimon ben Lakish Amar Raya B'Kiyum Ashtar. So we see that we have multiple generations of the same Machlokes. They're very close to one another, but nevertheless, the machlokas is the same. Rav Shimon and Rav Yochanan, Rav Shimon ben Lakish and Rav Yochanan were earlier than Rav Huna and Rabbi bar Huna, I believe. I'm fairly certain that's the case historically, because Rav Yochanan Can't get much earlier than Rabbi Yochanan in the times of the Amoraim. He and Rav were contemporaries for part of their lives, and Rav was the Dor HaMa'avar. So that's likely the case. So what we see is the Machlokas of Yochanan and Reish Lakish is very similar. But unlike in the previous case, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish have it out directly. They're talking and learning about this sugya, so we get to see a little bit of the banter around these two shitas, that a raya is either edim or that it is kiyum ashtar. Eisvei Rabbi Yochanan, the Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. It's always scary when your chavrusa is Rabbi Yochanan and he says, "I don't like your opinion, and I have a question to ask you." So what was his kasha? The Gemara says, "Ma'aseh b'vnei brak." You want to see one of the craziest Rashbams ever? Please explain this to me. Bnei Brak, makom.
It's a place. As opposed
Well,
to.
I mean, I think what he's saying is,
Where the sun
the
goes.
neighbor means the sons, yeah. But historically, by the time the Rashbam was writing, people.
It's written in the language of the Tanoim already. That's the Agada.
Historically, by the time of the Rashbam, that.
The Rashbam, even the Amoraim, even Rav Yochanan, it was Dvarim Pshutim
Well, we
already.
don't know.
We don't know what they knew, but
But they were.
no,
reciting-
that's a brisa. Hayim Musubim b'vnei Brak. I don't know. I hear you that the sons of
I'm sure
Brak.
you're right, but.
I didn't even cross my mind that that's what it meant. I looked at it, I'm like, this doesn't. I'm missing something. What?
I feel like for the Rashbam, you feel like it didn't hurt to write one word to explain anything.
Rashi would have felt that way.
Rashi would not.
Rashi would have felt that way.
Anybody who didn't know, even though it's commonly known, he probably didn't.
Yes, I don't know. It's just, I guess what we have is Dvarim Pshutim. They didn't even know all the brises. That we have access to everything, even though we're Amaratzim. They had access to nothing. They were Tzimini Chachamim Matzumim. I just can't imagine that Rav Yochanan. I don't know. You're right. You're right. I just in my brain, it's like I don't understand. Okay, I'm wrong, so it doesn't matter. But let's move on. So let's see what the case was. Maisa b'bnei Brak. Be'echa, there was a man, Shemachar b'nichse aviv. He sold his father's goods. So let's say the father was Ruvain, and the son was Shimon. Ruvain dies, the son takes over all of the properties, and Shimon, the son, sells everything, umes. And then Shimon dies, father, son. So now, the sale that Shimon did, we think is chal. But look at what the other Bnei Mishpacha say, the next of kin, who would have been the Yoresh of Shimon. What do they say? Ubo Bnei Mishpacha be'ir aru lomar katan hay b'shas misa. The guy, Shimon, who sold his father Ruvain's stuff, he was too young. Now, the Meforshim here explain that we are not talking about a katan under the age of 13. We're talking about a katan in that he might be 13, but he wasn't maybe shtei saros. And if he's not maybe shtei saros, then he has no right to make that sale, which is fascinating. I don't know. I mean, this reminds me of some of the lumdus behind not giving a child a lulav and esrog. I wonder if in that in-between time, if a child is 13 without shtei saros, is he able to? That sounds like this sugya a little bit. I don't know the answers here, but the family wants to say they were ma'ar, and they said the katan, that Shimon was a katan when he sold this, and therefore the sale is invalid, and therefore whatever Shimon sold, the Bnei Mishpacha should get back. He wasn't a minor. He's 13. We just don't know if he was maybe shtei saros. He's not 10. He doesn't need an apotropos. He's just not allowed to sell. He can keep it. He's a gadol. He can keep it. He just can't sell it. I think that's the right balance here. So this is what they did. They went to go ask a shaila to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shlita, I have a question for you. Uba'u v'shalus Rabbi Akiva, mahu lebodko. Can we exhume the body and see if he has shtei saros? That is a long distance to go to solve a problem. We have kavod ames. We know that there are people whose bodies are exhumed or moved to earth. So these things are shilas and poskim. They have to be done perfectly. Rabbi Akiva wasn't having it. Amar lehem I atem rishoim lenavlo. You're not allowed to be minavel. You're not allowed to disgrace the body by doing this. Pasnisht. What's the isser? I don't know. Maybe there is no isser. No, you're not. No. No, but you're not hurting you're not doing anything to the body.
Right.
You're not doing anything. So my friend, one of my colleagues in the OU, called me about a year ago and said, I need you to help me. I have a very distant cousin. He came to Chicago. He overdosed and died in a hotel, a horrible story. Overdosed and died in a hotel downtown. I need you to liaise. Please make sure he doesn't have an autopsy. So I called Simcha Frank on the phone, back and forth. And then I found out that you cannot get away from a blood test. They always will draw blood. Taka found out. I got a phone call a month later. I came out had forgotten what had happened. They're like, we just wanted to let you know that your loved one, like that he. I'm like, bro, I don't know who this guy Nick is, but he's not my family. But he in fact was an overdose. He died. So then we were like dealing with all of these shilas, and I was talking to Moshe Wolf, who said, you never want to push for not doing it or for doing it. He said your perspective should always be neutral, because it's a can of worms. If they find out something because you said something that nobody else wanted to know, you're achroi now. He's like, tell them it is the preference of the family is X, and then back off. Don't press. He's like, don't. He's like, just avoid it. Anyways, but this is not nivel ames. This is just looking. It's just a bdika. So let's make the case easier. Let's say that he's in a morgue. Are you allowed to open the fridge and check? It's I don't know. It seems like he was buried.
Right, so that's what I was wondering.
What?
It's not like a coveted
I'm not seeing
procedure.
the wall,
It's just-
It's not kavadik, but it's also not nivel hames. I mean, I'm wrong because he called it nivel hames, but I'm just saying that what? What'd you say? Oh, they were moving fast. They didn't refrigerate. They buried.
Right, that's huge for rest. The
No.
one that is in the morgue, you still have what you need to do with it. With that body.
Yeah, I don't know the context here of how far into the process of burial we were here. I don't know. I have a Rabbeinu Gershom here on the side, and he says, "Amar lami atem Hashem lanavlo me'achar shemes." No, but he's defining nivul as using the body after death, which l'chor is what the Gemara means. Looking, is it a bizayon?
There's another problem there, isn't that, I don't know if we call it sneeze, but there's also, that's a bit of a local thing to do anyway. I mean.
You're talking to a Moel. I don't know.
Okay, fine,
I don't know if that's true, what you're saying. I don't know if that's considered arum. If a person is alive, you're not allowed to be mispalel in front of a man if he's completely undressed, and a woman if she's uncovered in a way that she's not sanel. But if a person is dead, can you daven in front of a mace? You can't. That's a davening issue, right?
the Kaddish is always, a man has to be seen by a man, a woman by a woman.
It's
There's
true.
There's
something.
something about.
Very good. Very good. This is why these kinds of things frustrate me. I wish I had an extra 45 minutes. I'd dig into the sugya, present you with Mar Makomos. We'd have a beautiful share. So says Rabbi Akiva. Look, I'm sorry Shimon died. I'm sorry that you think he was a katan shelo ikiya shtei sars. I'm sorry, but I'm not allowing you to dig up the body or whatever the nivul hames is. I'm not allowing you to do it. And then Rabbi Akiva doubles down. And furthermore, last line on Kufnun Dal One Aleph. Simonin asin lishtanos la'achar misa. Once a person dies, the body changes. Maybe the hairs fell out, and maybe it's not a raya one way or the other. The Rashbam says on the bottom line, even if it looks like it now that there are simonim, perhaps that would not be the case. Maybe he would have been bald. We have no idea. So Rabbi Akiva is not having it. Top of Kufnun Darim Beis. Rav Yochanan is still talking. Bishlama Didi. I understand, says Rav Yochanan, according to me, the Amina, I hold that Raya Be'edim. I hold that. What are we talking about in this case? That it's Raya Be'edim, that we need to bring Edim. Kevan de Amar Lilakuchos, because it was said to the purchasers, I su Edim velo ashkechu. You need to bring Edim if you want it, but if you don't, then you can't get it. Hainu de ka'asu v'amrulei mahu lebodko. I could understand if what you're saying is that that the Eidim are the thrust of what we need to do, that now we might be missing data. We need to go check the body. That the raya is from Kiyum Ashtar. Why are you checking the body? The body's not the raya. The star is the raya. So therefore, lama lahu lebodko. Lekaimo shtaraihu v'lukma b'nichse. All you need to do is go look at the star and shalom al Yisrael. So Rav Yochanan must be right, because of the fact that we see that they asked Rabbi Akiva that I have to go check the body. If the way we verify in our Mishnah is by a star, who cares about anything other than the star? What are you assuming a body for? All is fine and good, says Rav Yochanan, I must be right. So says the Gemara, Reish Lakish retorts and responds back to Rabbi Yochanan, Mi savres nichse bechezkas b'nei mishpacha kaimi v'ka'asu lekuchos me'ararei. Who says, Rabbi Yochanan, that the case is where the properties are with the family and the lekuchos are complaining? Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe nichse bechezkas lekuchos kaimi. Maybe the nechasim are in the hands of the buyers, the non-family members. The ka'asu b'nei mishpacha become arare, and really the family is the one that's coming to complain. And hachanami mistabra, I'll show you why this is logical. Midika'amar lehu iatem rishoyim lenavlo. Rabbi Akiva said back to them, you cannot be menavel. You're not allowed to disgrace the body in this way. V'ishtiku, and they were quiet. Now, who's going to be quiet after that kind of a comment? Hopefully everybody, but certainly the family, right?
It's only Rabbi Akiva talking.
It's Rabbi Akiva talking. Now, if it's the family asking this question of Rabbi Shlita, can we look at the body? It's their family member. They accepted the psak. If non-family members were the ones who were asking the shaila, why would they be quiet? Lame rule. They should say to Rabbi Akiva, Anan zuzi yavin, linval v'linval. That's not my problem. Linval v'linval. Go be menavel. Go check the body. It's not my problem.
So the nivol is not what we think of nivol. I think it's busha.
It's certainly not what we would have thought, which is like doing something to the body.
It's not nice.
Ein anu choshishin beboshto, she'eno krovenu, v'hifsadnu meruba. There's two things.
I'm sorry,
No,
to be embarrassing, but
this
there's
is-
a lot of dough involved.
There's more halacha. This is hefsid meruba. This is what the Rashbam is saying. It's hefsid
Could
meruba.
be.
Hefsid meruba overrides busha. That's what he's
Could
saying.
be. But it's busha, it's not, I don't think it's shot like.
That is nivul.
Law.
Right. It's not poking. It's not. You're not damaging the body. It's busha.
Appropriate, which is what Rabbi Akiva, I guess.
It's busha.
I assume that's what it means.
It's busha.
Yeah.
Meaning that someone will view the mace in a denigrating way.
So, yeah, we have a concept of blowing a rush, right?
Yeah.
Not to where it sits us out. So, there's some feeling there, if you will, but it's not evil the way we normally.
Tosfos doesn't seem to agree with this.
Really?
Zuze yavin and linval v'linval, abal yorshem einam rishoim linavlo. Meaning, there's a difference between I'm like the Rashbam seem to say I'm family. I can't bring myself to do it. The Balei Tosfos are saying this is you're not allowed to, but a family member is allowed to. Right. Oh.
Right. The low media hobby, they didn't give anything. They might lose out on something, but they came out. Mashain came.
Yeah, but the last line,
guy,
but the last part of Tosfos says v'od shehu krovam.
Yeah.
So I think that v'od is the Rashbam. It's families. You shouldn't. It's not nice.
Not so nice.
I could understand that.
Mhm.
But the hefsid meruba against the nivel, as long as you're a non-family member, I would have thought that the nivel was.
I'll just say more. They laid out money. You may lose.
That's the first answer. Yeah, yeah. It's not gaining. It's minias harevach. It's not gaining.
So to speak. But the purchaser that laid out money and is going to get nothing for it, that's a hefsid meruba.
I really like that distinction. The only thing that bothers me is that I would have thought that nivul ames was a standard.
Right, so that.
I would have thought that like It doesn't matter. You're not allowed. I don't care who you
Why
are.
do you think?
Yeah, you're just not allowed to behave that way. Like it's behavioral. But what we're seeing is that that's not true. There's,
So Gimel HaMeis in the vernacular probably is.
I'm sure.
A little bit of Busha doesn't get to the same.
Correct. So with Busha, according to the Balei Tosfos, the non-family members are allowed to be menavel for the sake of not having a loss.
Right, seems like it.
That's a chiddush atzum to me.
Wild?
Yeah. Okay, kachazeh. So that's what the Gemara says. Linval v'linval. We're a quarter of the way down. So says the Gemara, imi shumha. If that's the case, says Rav Yochanan, lo iria. That's not a good argument because hachi kamar lo. This could be the argument back to them. Chada di atem rishayim lanavlo. You're not allowed. Ve'od v'chitemru zuze shakal linval v'linval. If you want to say it's not fair, say the Lakuchos, he took my money, and I should be allowed because of Hefsid Meruba, just stealing the language from Rashi. Kind of wasn't his language, but we learned from him. V'hifsadnu Meruba, it's close enough. So if that's true, then Simanim Asin Lishtanas Achar Misa, then there's no raya one way or the other. Anyways, a big machlokas between Reish Lakish and Rav Yochanan in regards to these shitas of whether or not we say that the raya is supposed to be be'edim or if it's supposed to be be'kiyum hashtar. Says the Gemara at the parentheses, but skipping the parentheses, I believe. Let me just look at this aleph. Yeah, lo garas, ayin marsha. Sha'ar Reb Shimon ben Lakish es Reb Yochanan. We're going to flip the questioner now. Because he held shtar. He held that the raya was with a shtar. Reb Yochanan held that the raya was with edim. Zusha shnuya b'mishnas bar kapara. He quoted something from the Mishnas bar kapara. What's the Mishnas bar kapara? That l'chora is the Tosefta, as we've learned many a time, that Levi and bar kapara were the ones who put together, organized in a similar fashion, not exactly the way Rebbe did Mishnayos, but in a somewhat similar fashion. Levi and bar kapara organized the Toseftaos like we have in the backs of the Gemara. So I presume that's what Mishnas bar kapara means. I don't know if the art scroll talks about this. If anybody sees it, you can let me know. But I'm pretty sure it's a Tosefta. Anyways, what did Reish Lakish, Reb Shimon ben Lakish, say to Rabbi Yochanan, based on a brisa? Hare shahaya ochel sadeh uva. A person was consuming food from a field. B'chezkas shehi shelo. I'm a squatter. I live there. It's my food. And then out of the blue, v'kara alav echad ir lomar shelihu. So I'm sitting there. Rabbi Sandberg comes over to me. He's like, buddy, you're in my field. V'hotzi ze es ono. I, the squatter, take out my shtar. An ono is a shtar. We've seen this before a couple times at least. Lomar shemechartali. No, Rabbi Sandberg, you sold it to me. O shenosatali b'matana. Whatever the shtar says is a raya brura that I, the person who's on the field right now, I am the person who owns this field. Now, let's see how Rabbi Sandberg responds to me. Im Omar Eini Makir Bishtar Zemeolam. If Rabbi Sandberg says, I've never seen this document before, Yiskai Mashtar B'chosamav, then as long as we can verify the chasima, his opinion doesn't matter. It's his word against the shtar. The shtar is going to win every time. The shtar has Aiden. It's not one against the shtar. It's one against Adim on the shtar, which is a zero. You know, the scales are tipped. That's easy. But im Omar shtar pasim hu zeh, shtar amana shemacharti lach v'lo nasata lidamim, that really it's a shtar pasim. The Rashbam says shtar pasim 12, 13 lines down. Shepiasta mimeni lichtov l'cha shtar mechira lahachzikcha be'oshir lokech karkos. I wrote it for you just so it'll pad the books. It makes it look like you have more assets than you do. Or a shtar amana, the Rashbam says, he'emanticha limsor l'cha shtar mechira kodem shekibalti adamim. I gave you a shtar before you paid. Usually bad protocol, but I did it anyways. I gave you the shtar. So if I'm living on this field and eating, Rabbi Sandberg says, Phil, you don't own this field, and I present a shtar, and then Rabbi Sandberg says it's a shtar pasim or a shtar amana. Im yesh edim, halach achar edim. If there are edim, we do follow the edim. V'im lav, but if there aren't, then what do we do? Halach achar ashtar. So what do we see? That when there are no edim, we can rely on the shtar. Rav Shimon ben Lakish, Rish Lakish says, Givaldik, I have a raya for my shita. That's what I've been saying all the while. He says, I'm of the opinion that the raya from our Mishnah on the bottom of Kufnun Gimel Amud Aleph, the raya is Bishtar, and here's a raya for that. Lema Reb Meirhi, maybe we should say that this shita, which is really from Bar Kapara, that this Tosefta is like Reb Meirhi, to Amar Mode Bishtar, Shekasvo, when a person admits to writing a shtar, Eno Tzarach Lakaimo, this seems to be a lot like the shita that we just saw, Velo Rabbanon. It seems like it's like Rav Meir, not the Rabbanon, which would be difficult. Why wouldn't you hold like the Rabbanon? Amar Leilo, he says, Rav Yochanan says, no, that's incorrect. Shani Omer, Divrei Akol, everyone agrees. Mod b'shtar shekasvo eno tzarach lakaimo. He says, no, I don't agree with you. There is no machlokas. Everybody holds that mod b'shtar shekasvo, that if a person admits to a shtar, we don't need a kiyum hashtar. The Gemara says, how in the world, Rav Yochanan, can you say that? V'ha miflag pligi. We know for sure that this is a machlokas because we've already learned it once today that there's a machlokas Tanoim, Rav Meir, and the Chachamim about this topic. And then remember we said on Kufnan Tal we already learned this Chadazimna, and we had to answer up and say one was talking about Eidim and one was talking about individuals. The Tanya, we said on the previous page, quoting from Maseches Ksubas Daf Yudches, Ein Amanu B'Laposa Divi Rav Meir. So we see that their taka is the machlokas about this. How can you say, Rav Yochanan, that there isn't? Says the Gemara, Amar Lei, Eidim Alimi Umar Ishtara. You can't compare the two cases. Similar answer as before. In one case, we were talking about Eidim. Eidim can be Marish Shtara. Eidim can shter. They can say, no, shtar is wrong. Eidim are right. However, Ihu Kol Kamine, but when it's only one person, yeah, Rabbi Sandberg has no sheet at all. You have nothing to stand on. It's you against me. That doesn't work. Hold on 1 second, Rav Yochanan. You yourself said that the irur of the family was considered to be a good irur, and we needed a kiyum mashtar, even though there was a hoda, right? The Rishonim. So Amar Lei, Zu Elazar Amra. Rav Yochanan says, Elazar said that. Ani lo amarti davar zeme olam. Rav Yochanan says, I never said that. You never heard it in my name, and it was true because he heard it in somebody else's name. It was only sheets of Elazar. Says the Gemara, this does not work. Amar Abzeira, Im yachpor Rabbi Yochanan b'Reb Elazar talmido. Rabbi Yochanan can reject whatever his students say. Rabbi Yochanan was kind of first, maybe second century Amoraim. Rabbi Elazar was third. So says the Gemara, it's fine if Rabbi Yochanan wants to reject his student. But yachpor b'Reb Yanai Rabbo. But Rabbi Yochanan's Rebbe, Rav Yanai, said this exact shita. The Amar Rav Yanai, Amar Rebbe. The Amar Rav Yanai, Amar Rebbe, Mode b'shar shekasvo tzarich l'kaimo. So what do we see from here? That Rav Yochanan can't escape it. I'm sorry, not Eno. The word Eno is not read. I don't remember if I read it or not. We skip it. The Mode b'shar tzarich l'kaimo. So that's a problem. Because Rav Yochanan, you can't not say like your Rebbe. So the Gemara says, V'amar le Rav Yochanan, Rebbe, lo mishnasenu hizu. Rav Yochanan had said to his Rebbe, Rav Yanai, Rebbe, isn't this our Mishnah from Kufnan Gimel where we started today, coming full circle, the Chachamim Omrim, Hamotzi mechavero olav raya ein raya ela b'kiyum hashtar. Isn't that what, Rav Yanai, isn't that what it means? Showing full well that Rav Yochanan is in a pickle right now. And he continues, Baram nir and divrei Rabbeinu Yosef. He says, but Rav Yochanan is still talking, I still hold of the sheet of Rabbeinu Yosef. Tamar Rabbeinu Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Zu divrei Chachamim. This is the opinion of the Chachamim that the Shchiv Meira would need to bring a proof of some kind. That's like the Tanakama. But Rav Meir was of the opinion that Mod B'Shtar is Shekasvo Tzarech L'Kaimo. So we're stuck in the middle of a sugya right now, and we're now going to ask Umay Divrei Yaakov. We're going to wait until tomorrow, and you'll learn the sugya with Rabbi Handler, and this is going to go back to the comment that we saw a few lines ago in the name of Rav Yochanan, but we're going to stop right here and pick up then. Mirz Hashem, I'll be back Sunday night to be together in shiur. Just another reminder, I'll keep saying it a few times, that I'll be out of town as well, December 8th through the 17th, and I'm again these next couple of days as well. Soon we'll get into a healthy pattern, but not right now. Wishing you all a beautiful day.